So we're going to be doing Ignites again. These are 5-minute talks, 20 slides, 15-second auto-progressing, and then we will have our 3 karaokes. Stephanie, Aaron signed you up, so be ready. You ready? All right. We're good to go. So up first, we have Shahzad. He's going to come and give us a good 5-minute talk.
Ready? Hi, everyone. I'm Shahzad Zafar. I'm Vice President of Engineering at RX Saving Solutions, and what I'm going to talk to you about is running a DevOps marathon, because if you have done anything with DevOps, you know it's not a sprint, it doesn't end quickly, and it's something you have to do for a while. So why do we want to do this? Because obviously, as Dev and Ops, we want everybody to be happy. You don't want to burn out, and we want a smooth flow from as you go from development to operations and back. And getting that feedback loop, having a short, tight feedback loop. What we end up generally getting is a lot of finger pointing, right? It's your fault. It works in dev, doesn't work in production, and really that's because of the wall of confusion. On development, you're motivated by change, and on operations, you're generally motivated by stability. And there's this confusion of what is really important and who wins out. Implementing is hard because of the wall of confusion, the competing priorities, also how you're measured. Both in terms of operational metrics, like kind of how do we measure our team day to day, and then also annual performance reviews, and we'll quickly touch on that because that could be a very big topic. To get started, you definitely need leadership agreement. A lot of these things always start off as grassroots, but really at some point you need some leadership agreements from a top-down perspective that this is something we want to do and something we want to try out because it will fundamentally change how we do work. And we want to be lean in defining our process. So when we talk about leadership agreement, you don't need a full-blown process or anything like that, just enough, just to know where do I get started, how do I start making this change. And really, that's just enough. And then the idea is that as you go along, you learn more. Co-location is really important. So this study was really awesome when I read it. It talks about for a 20-meter separation, your chance of communication with somebody goes down to just 5%. That alone is a big case for co-locating and trying different things like video conferencing. So if you're separate teams especially, start by just sitting together and start to learn about one another, because that's really the starting point for us to act and behave as one team. So when we talk about one team, what does that really mean? Is that you really start working off of one backlog. So in terms of your project priorities, what needs to get and what's important, do you all believe it's the same thing? It's no longer separate backlogs or separate boards. You all do it together. You can do daily stand-ups, joint ownership of project delivery and implementations or maintenance, whatever it may be, that you are truly jointly owners for whatever project or whatever product you own. Shared vision, active participation, and things come along with that. Because really what you're trying to get to is, if you've read the book, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, if you haven't read it, highly recommend it. But what you're trying to remove is this fear of conflict and absence of trust. So you want to build trust, you want to have conflict, but a healthy debate around what's right, what is the right decision, and not be afraid of having that conflict and making the wrong decisions. Once you establish trust and conflict, only then you will get commitment, accountability, and results. And really that top part is really what we are all here for, to really get some good results and things make our customers successful. You want to get to the same parameter of success. What does success mean to you? If you have delivery, adoption metrics, and development, operations should care about it. And if you have availability, latency, error rates, things like that, as developers, core software developers, they should care about it as well. It's really trying to align on the same thing. If you have heard of service level objectives, I felt like when I read the SRE book from Google, that was a really good way to really align the business with engineering, really trying to get on the same page what success means to all of us. So SLOs, if you haven't read it, really helpful. And lastly, you have to realize that your job function is changing. How work is getting done in your organization is changing. So as a leadership team or as a group, you have to decide how does that change annual performance reviews. Every company has some sort of way to evaluate people on a yearly basis. What changes comes to that? If you're looking at scalability in a multi-team environment, you might have a team that's more of a platform team. It's an enabler team. More of the idea is that they're more the evangelist in your company. They're trying to enable everybody to do more and help them evangelize these concepts. If you have heard of the Spotify model, that's a great way to kind of get that evangelism going. You can create chapters and guilds to really start spreading the knowledge and spreading the wealth of DevOps. And as you guys all go back, I would recommend you to start looking into establishing something similar. To get started, the Phoenix Project is a really good book. If you're new to DevOps, highly recommend it. And Site Reliability Engineering from Google is what I referenced before. Again, it's another book I recently read, and I thought it was really good, kind of helping setting how to get started on it. And lastly, the thing to remember, always keep trying, because this is, again, as I said, it's not a sprint. It's a marathon, and might feel like a never-ending marathon. I don't run marathons myself, but still. It's be deliberate about creating a culture of continuous improvement, because it is a culture change. It's all about the people. And that's the most important thing to remember. With that, thank you very much. If you have questions, find me afterwards.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, next up we have Joel. Let me get your slide pulled up. There you go. All right. Are you ready?
Yeah, I talk fast as it is, so this should be pretty wild. All right, let's see what happens. So, that's me, that's the date, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about dojos. I'm going to tell you my perspective on dojos because I've seen a lot of people doing them in very strange and incoherent ways, and I just don't kind of dig it too much. So let's get into it. There you go. Everybody knows this dude. I read the book. Talks about improving your work is more important than the work itself. That's the point of the dojo. We're trying to make it so learning is happening and improving work is something that happens all the time inside of organizations. So if you want to know what a dojo is, this is a dojo. You're all certified. There you go. What's cool about this is it's people coming together to work on their problems and learn new things together. You don't go off to a class and learn things. You learn to do things with your problem space. The space is set up to be super collaborative, but it's also set up to make it so people can share ideas. Here's a bunch of ideas that we have for the spaces for the teams, nice visuals. Comfortable space, ways for teams to share not only within but across teams. And here's some more stuff we're going to talk about. Again, I want to tell you about my take on a dojo. So if yours is different, totally cool. I'm going to tell you why mine's better. There you go. And at the end, you can start your own. So here you go. DevOps Handbook's cool. It talks about this idea of a value stream. It's wrong. If your dojo is only talking about DevOps stuff, it's not enough because the majority of times in organizations, your problems start upstream. And so you need to be thinking about all of the problems in your organization, not just technical ones. With a dojo, we're trying to create a culture of learning. You're all here today. It's super cool. If your organization's a learning organization, but learning means you get to go to 2 conferences a year, you're not a learning organization. Dojos are trying to create a culture of learning. And you got this thing. This is my arm. Here's the thing. We tacit and explicit knowledge, right? Don't go to a tattoo artist that learned everything by reading Confluence. It's not going to have a good experience. If you're trying to build out DevOps, Confluence won't be enough, and people have to experience it themselves. Inside the dojo, this is what we do. We start off with teams, and we frame up what they're going to learn and make sure that they want to learn and do things, and then they do it. And we learn together, and we teach, and we pair, and we grow it together. And then we support them at the end. This is how we start off framing their learning goals. The key thing here is we try to make it so everybody knows that everybody has something to learn. Nobody is perfect. We're trying to create a learning environment so that this is something the team takes forward afterwards. There is no playbook. So if you're going to a dojo and they say, here's the dojo playbook, there isn't one because every team is unique and you have to cater the learning to the team themselves and the problems they face. Here's 2 samples. You can see they couldn't be any more similar. What else do we focus on in these dojos? We don't focus on techno-fetishism. We focus on the values and the practices because the tools are always going to change. So if your dojos are just about Jenkins, get them out. They're not right. And you have to support teams when they leave. They come into this dojo, it's fragile, and they kind of get broken down in good ways. But when they leave, they can't be back to business as normal. You have to support the teams when they leave the dojo. And now I'm caught up with my breath. So what's going to happen? You're all going to leave super jazzed about starting your own dojo. Just realize that once you do this, your organization's going to get upset because all of these things that they don't want to talk about are going to blow up. When you say we're slowing down to learn, people don't like to slow down to learn. When you say we need people to work together, but security says that group can't see that code, it's going to get really weird really fast. When you try to deploy something and somebody says India can't deploy it because, well, India, it's going to get super weird really fast. Just realize things are going to blow up. And these dojos are going to expose your bias. If you think you're always right, I can't tell you how wrong you are. If you're inside these dojos and you're not thinking about how wrong you are, you got the wrong frame of mind. And so these dojos are going to expose those bias. So you're going to leave here super jazzed. You're going to go start your own. You got to figure out where to start focusing on these things. You can't just focus on the tools. You got to focus on a good team with a good problem space and that wants to learn something. You got to focus on, if you can't create a space like I showed you in that first picture, you can go to teams. Just don't do like in a cube space. Take them to a new space so they get out of their mind of thinking and they're thinking in new ways. Everybody knows cubes are lame, but get a team together. And this is not a pitch for me, but like here's the deal. You're going to create this space where people are going to learn things, but your best tech engineers are not your best teachers. You need somebody that's not there to give answers, but that's to help your teams ask better questions. So if you're going to do a dojo, make sure you have people that can help and actually coach. Last but not least, some parting thoughts for you. This dude's pretty smart. If you haven't read some Deming stuff, I would check that out. We did some stuff for IT Revolution, talking about dojos. Check it out there, and then I Bumble a lot more out there. But go start a dojo. If you want to become like this culture of learning, this is the way to do it. There you go.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Great job. All right, up next we have Todd. And let me find your slides. Nope, not that one.
Not me.
This one? Here we go.
Looks like me.
All right, that looks like you. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right.
Hello, everyone. I am Todd Brees from DST Systems, and I want to talk about the developer experience, getting people started out, and something we did for our interns this year. So it's really, you think about the development experience. You think about whenever people are getting started out, whenever they're actually getting going. You've got Hello World. It's a magical experience. Everything just works. It is a simple process. You put in your code, and boom, it's there. It's on the screen. You're able to work with it. But whenever you get out into the real world, it's not exactly the same way. Half the documentation's on fire. You've got a big, long terms and conditions that you need to read, and you've just got a pile of Legos sitting there. Put it together and make it work. Well, what do? We say, I'm sure I can Google that. I can go out there. I can find that information. I can find what I need to really get going on this development experience, this development journey. But whenever you do Google it, you find the answers are incomplete. You may be missing the first step. Shoot, from a new experience, you might be thinking that you're missing every step. And then it's just a simple, hey, do this, and you'll have this magical picture that looks like this Lego box that's all fantastic with backgrounds and everything. But what if there was a magical way? What if there was an easy way to help people get started and get going on that development experience, especially with your legacy projects? Well, strap in. We're going to talk about Eclipse Che. Eclipse Che is an online IDE. So it's an IDE that some of you may not be familiar with, but it's one that's done in the browser. So we've got tooling where we're able to actually work not without having to install everything. Everything's already bundled up. It's ready to go, so your new developers, your interns, your people that are starting on your team can actually get in and start working with code without any complex dependencies or any of those hassles that you normally think about whenever you're talking about a legacy project. All they have to do is go to your Git repo, click on a link, looks exactly like this, and there's magic. They're able to actually go and have that IDE up in their browser. And we found this was a big benefit for those interns because they were able to actually get in and start writing code. The IDE appears. If you're comfortable with Eclipse, it's very, very similar to that in the stand-up. You're able to start working on that code and make meaningful contributions. If you all want to get started at your organization, there's 3 pretty easy ways to go. You can go with the hosted solution, which CodeEnvy.io is a good option. You can run it in Docker locally, or you can run it in something like Kubernetes or OpenShift. The easiest way by far to get exposed to this is to use a resource like CodeEnvy.io. All you've got to do is go to the website, create an account, and then once you create an account, you'll be able to go in and start creating spaces that are called your workspaces. You can make those workspaces available for other people to join in and work on and be able to contribute to the code. But a lot of times we find ourselves in organizations where, you know what, we're looking at this and we say, we don't want to go with a hosted solution. In my company, we couldn't go to the cloud. We wanted to make sure that we had something that was available on-premise. Just for Ben. So, what we did, step one, deploy OpenShift. I'm not going to go into details on that, obviously, and I am going to kind of skip ahead from the web thing. But once you've actually got OpenShift deployed, go to the documentation, handy-dandy information right there on the slide. Read all the documentation, because as developers, operations people here, developers read all of the information before we go to take in. Well, okay, maybe we just skip ahead and SSH onto our master and run the script. So there's a couple of scripts on the, if you do scan through the documentation or do a quick Control F, you can find a handy-dandy command, and you'll get EclipseJ up and running on your whatever solution you're deploying it on. Next steps, you want to set up factories so people can work within those predefined workspace, create your own stacks. Somebody said something about moving fast and breaking stuff, but I think that gets you in front of Congress. So be careful, have fun, realize it is a changing in the development environment. So some things like hotkeys won't work, your developers may grumble a little bit. But the new ones that we found really appreciated the effort that it was to make things easy for them, get ready to go, and have fun. With that, I'm going to say, che la vie. Thank you all very much.
All right. Thank you, Todd. Thank you. Up next, we have Jessica. Let me get yours ready. All right. Here's your, oh, you got a headset. That makes it easier. All right. You ready?
Yep.
All right.
Hello, my name's Jessica. I am a QA intern. For the last 8 months, I've been testing software at the NAIC, and this is about what I've learned. I think everybody can benefit from what I'm about to say that's in technology, although most of you probably figured it out a while ago. This could serve as a reminder to spread the word to people who are new. So these are the 8 most important lessons that everyone in technology should know. I picked these because these have been a part of my everyday work life. So the first thing is ask a lot of questions. It is expected. You're not a burden to anybody. Everybody was there at one point. And if you're not sure, just ask a duck. It's a test to see if your question can be solved on your own. So, if it's a really a stupid question if you get smarter by asking it. Go on. So you get what you ask for. If you never ask for the advice, the tools, reading material, or whatever else you want or need, you probably won't get it. It's your job to make your experience educational. So that's a quote I felt summed it up pretty nicely. So it's okay to not know exactly what you're doing. I've realized that when people are starting a new project, they don't know exactly 100% what's going to happen, and it's okay. And yes. So joining the conversation is one of the most important things. So I think a lot of people are like, well, I'm not exactly sure what they're talking about, so I probably shouldn't be part of this, but you should be. I mean, there's an old saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, you know, why be in that room? Well, it's the opposite. So don't be a Dilbert. You can't have a informative conversation by yourself. And it's really important to teach yourself. I mean, there's a lot of people who have not completed their degree or have a degree in something else, or don't have pertinent experience, and they just taught themselves. That's really true. It's the only way to learn is just dive right in, do it, teach yourself. And then the second part to that is to prove you actually can do it. You are judged based on what you can prove you can do. Document it, get references, make a portfolio, and especially network. Different studies say different percentages, but all of them do say that most jobs are actually filled by networking. So it's really important to get yourself out there, make yourself memorable, but maybe not that memorable. So my last thing is learn from others. One of the best advice I've gotten is to actually write down what you think others did well, or a situation that they handled well, or maybe they didn't well, or you think that's holding them back. And yeah, then you can learn from other people's experiences and become better yourself. And I felt like that quote summed it up pretty well. So thank you so much for listening. That's my kitten. So.
All right. Thank you, Jessica. Go.
All right.
As soon as it plays.
As soon as it plays.
Maybe. Oh,
There
yeah.
we go.
Here we go.
All right. I'm Tom Cudd, Systems Architect here in Kansas City at VML Y&R. In a few years, we transformed how we were barely able to work with fellow humans into a shining example of how to run a DevOps-focused team. To steal from Chef, we centered our DevOps around a cultural and professional movement built on the experiences of our practitioners. But you can make up whatever you want because DevOps is what you need it to be. Culture is about more than going to an art show or street fair. It's about participation. It's an active, inclusive process. So how do we enable better culture? Well, we look for patterns. We look for anti-patterns, and we try to correct them. Martin Fowler says, even with the best tools, DevOps is another buzzword if you don't change your culture. And from Accelerate, you can act your way to a better culture by implementing good practices in tech orgs. So to start with, avoid being a blocking resource when people are asking for things like, where's that database or build server? You might be preventing someone from getting their work done. Instead, use a wiki, share information. Documentation is your framework for automating repetitive work or toil. You can't have new, interesting projects if you don't get all the boring crap off your plate. So it's not about putting out the fire. It's about preventing fires to begin with. Avoid setting bad expectations with odd, off-hours communications, and avoid when you see those people circumventing process just to get that one special resource who just, does whatever, midnight or 3 in the morning. Avoid people getting burned out. We monitor use it or lose it vacation time, and we rotate people through tough projects. We push out rote work by collaborating on new automated processes. Just smashing together a development and operations team doesn't eliminate silos. Siloed orgs see problems like ops work planned before the project or QA work planned in the last sprint. To avoid silos, we combine source control, documentation, and we make sure teams are co-located, even virtually in the same stand-ups or status systems. We practice proactive cross-team problem solving. When you start to see work approvals having to go through someone who's in charge to get done, it's a red flag. People will begin to fear arbitrary reprimands when the process isn't followed. So to avoid this, we first assume positive intent, And then we work off the premise that it's better to ask for forgiveness than permissions. We put together resources with varied experience levels so that they can train and lead and learn. We trust people to make good decisions. Years ago, we unintentionally created new big bottlenecks by not supporting our QA team properly. If you've automated so much dev work that bugs pile up at the end, you've got a problem. Now we embed QA and ops resources on the same teams to improve the QA tool set, and we track bugs evenly through the life of a project. Teams solving problems together provide vastly superior solutions. Information hoarding comes from an individual place of insecurity. People who own systems or processes can be overly focused on the right way to maintain control. You'll see a lot of these types of people reduce or limit changes to their systems to hold on to that control. So instead, we keep track of tasks and issues, and we document release notes. We focus on bubbling up that critical feedback when behaviors need to change, provide radical candor one-on-one about problems, and reach across technical aisles to solve things. You may face some manual process problems when certain pitfalls, like it's faster for me to do it than show someone, or it takes too long to automate, start to come up. Instead, automation is the force multiplier that makes DevOps so powerful. We work on pairing engineers to document process and start with any small amount of automation we can do. We buy back time on those small safe steps to build better automation. Changing culture is achieved by the deliberate, repeated practice of everybody in the organization. Someone who's played guitar for 20 years is going to look smooth and make it look easy, and a beginner is going to look choppy and strained. If you're a doer or a contributor, don't wait for your leaders to change, and if you're a leader, don't demand your contributors change. Take it upon yourself to change and display the desired behaviors yourself instead. Thank you.